Hi guys, so I'm Rani, studying at the University of Pretoria, and my topic is going to be about basically understanding a hacker and using the psychology of a hacker to essentially trap them in a novice, should I say, invention called a psychological honeypot, or in Latin, amnimi capti. Okay, so that basically don't exist. They live in the undergarment of the world. I mean, that's a problem. So, what do we do? How are we going to discover a way of understanding what they're going to do, when they're going to do it, and how? It's a very important question. So let's start talking about it, right? So it's a fascinating field of psychology, and what does it involve with computer science? And the beautiful thing about computer science is it integrates with multiple aspects of different fields, and psychology specifically has a fundamental aspect, and joining psychology and computer science can be extremely beneficial in the long run, especially when it comes to cybersecurity. And with the endurance of understanding a hacker, not just for where they are, IP, or what forms of methods, countermeasures are taken, it's also understanding why they do what they do. So I took the liberty of understanding how to stop a hacker through battles, ancient battles. So more specifically, let's discuss something that I found very interesting, and understanding the psychology behind those hackers. What that means is, if a strategy in a battle was successful, how do we identify how successful it was? Well, we do it by understanding how many people or how many casualties there were based on that strategy. And which strategy are we talking about? So here's an example. Over here we have the battle between Hannibal and Gaius. So Hannibal was a Carthaginian general, right? And he was single-handedly nearly invaded Rome. And I found that extremely fascinating. So what did I learn about this man? So he was traveling from all across Spain, all across the Alps, and down to Rome. And he eventually got to the middle of Rome, and the Romans were like, "Uh-oh, he's going to attack the capital. What do we do?" Right? So from there, Hannibal said, "Okay, cool. I'm going to go carry on south." And the Roman generals occupied two major cities so that he doesn't proceed down to the capital. One major city, Hannibal strategized so it was a fascinating strategy. So what he did was he went down south to one of the cities where Gaius was occupying that city, and he did not want to leave. Essentially, what Hannibal did was very interesting. He said to himself, "Okay, well, what I'll do is I'll just carry on south around the city and carry on towards the capital." And Gaius was like, "Oh, this is counterintuitive. I can't let him go down there. The whole point of me being here is to stop him." So what Hannibal did was even more fascinating. He aggravated behind Hannibal, and Hannibal devised this new strategy, and I found it very fascinating. So Hannibal went across the river, the Lake Tasmin, and went up across the mountains. There were hills over here, and he put his troops over there, all his troops, and he put one mercenary troop by the camp, the blue camp over here, basically to make Gaius distracted. So Gaius saw them and he was excited. The ego, and this is the very important word, the ego of Gaius was there. It was ready. And he said, "Okay, attack immediately." Sent all his Roman legionnaires to attack that force. And as soon as that happened, he trapped himself by marching all his troops in a deformation sign just to go attack the main force over here. But all the men were waiting on top of the hill to attack south. And Hannibal said, "Attack." They went south, killed all the Romans and Gaius himself. So, why is this important? So, you might understand that the hackers have a very fascinating thing about them. And it came to discovery under research that their ego is actually a phenomenal aspect to understand. When a hacker starts something, why do they do it? And that's why that question is very important. So they do it either to make themselves satisfied because they've developed and attached themselves to a problem they know they can solve. So using a strategy similar to what Hannibal used is he used Gaius' ego to destroy him. So basically this honeypot, this novice honeypot now came to be through 4 levels of identification, or just 4 levels or components that build up this psychological honeypot, mainly composing of variable interchange, stationary analysis, dynamic foliation, and psychological capture, which is the end result, which is what we want. We want the hacker, he's ours now, right? So variable interchange is basically a game. You have 3 states. You have the hard state, the medium state, and the easy state. Hacker is now like, okay, cool, these are resources. This is the system, or decoy of the system, however it may be implemented, right? Now we're telling ourselves, okay, cool, what type of hacker are we dealing with? We want to gain as much information from this hacker as we can, right? If a hacker solves hard problems, we understand this hacker has a huge ego, right? If he attacks medium problems, not so much. Easy, he's pretty novice. But the idea is not to stop there. It's to go to the second level. We've raised a flag. They've solved the problem. They've gained the resource, whether it be real or fake. Now we make the problem. So there was a French philosopher I studied, and he came up with a very interesting saying. He said, well, when a donkey is placed between 2 bales of hay, the donkey would starve to death because the donkey cannot choose, right? Same ideology standing here with a hacker. We have 2 phenomenal resources, whether it be strong databases, password access, monetary systems, monetizations, stuff that companies use, that need. We want the hacker to see it, but not touch it. Or it may be a decoy of sorts, right? And the hacker now can choose. But we also give the hacker an option to leave. I mean, what do we lose if he left? I mean, the whole point of it is to either trap them or let them go and just don't come back. You know what you're messing with then, right? So whether they choose whichever challenge they go, it's the same. They feel like, and under psychology, there's something called extrinsic attributes where you reward someone for working hard. So that's what we're doing here. We're trying to make the hacker work hard for what they did. So here's your reward. It's a fake one, but you're more than welcome to have it. Then we have something called dynamic foliation, which is based on the layering of metamorphic locks, right? And now this is basically, I consider a pathway of sorts. So it's basically right over here. It's a pathway to allowing us to understand, now gather the data. We have now time to analyze the data and construct a model to say, okay, cool, A, B, C, D, here we are. We understand you now. We know your patterns, right? And then we finally go into what I call the red room, or the psychological capture. Final phase. Here we are. We got you. We know your patterns. We understand what you're doing. We understand the exact path you're taking, and we figured you out. So yeah, this is essentially what we consider now to be an idea, a model of a psychological honeypot. And in conclusion, this model is essentially fully based on researched on psychological aspects and computer science in terms of understanding what a honeypot can do and what how psychology can benefit what a honeypot can do and what a honeypot is capable of. So yes, that is me. Thank you.